All right, we're rolling. Okay, guys. Well, welcome to this week's manager training call. I'm not sure what we're calling these. It's Leadership Academy, Skills for Life, whatever you want to call it. The time we all get together to make sure that we have the summer of our dreams and the summer that we all deserve. I'm 15 years in, and the cool thing is that when you've done this as long as I have, dreams don't get smaller, they just get bigger. So all the things you guys are excited about, all the planning that you're doing, all the nerves you feel, all the enthusiasm you have, you know what, I think over time I thought some of that might fade for me, but it really hasn't. Every year this is a rush. This is an exciting time of year. It's nerve-wracking, it's exciting, and the great part is that there's still plenty of time to accomplish virtually anything, but not if you waste time. And that's why these calls are so important. I know a couple of y'all, just because of late night classes or watching this in a recording tomorrow, that's okay, but don't let any of this and don't let anything you have going on be an excuse to stop you from pushing as far as your preparation goes towards the goals that you have for yourself, to better yourself and prepare for all the people that you're going to get a chance to help out this summer. So it's going to be pretty exciting. Tonight we're going to get a chance to just kind of do a little bit of a rough unpacking of the schedule. Talking a little bit about planning and really trying to equip you guys with some tools that you can use to really work on your summer plan. All of you guys are going to have some kind of cap with either John or your district manager coming up here really soon. For those of you in town, that's pretty easy. We should get a chance to do it together one-on-one. If you live out of the area, that's okay. We'll still conference in or do something like this. But that way we're taking the time we need to work on your individual school dates. We've already got all those, but just make sure we have a good plan of attack. Make sure that we are clear on our different recruiting channels, what's going to be the real important difference makers for your office. Get a chance to talk about training, go over your productivity plan, your fast start plan, all these different things, and just make sure that you're in a good spot. So my goal tonight is not to try and teach you guys or work with y'all individually on every single one of your plans. We can't do that. But I do want to kind of start to give you a sense for what it actually looks like when you really start to break a summer down. I love seeing all these people bump on and then they immediately turn their cameras off. I want to go through and turn all your cameras on. So that being said, I am going to put some things in the group me. We could screen share, but I think sometimes that gets a little tough. So I'm going to throw a few things up in the group me as images, but we'll put some actual PDFs up there as soon as the call is over, and that might be a little bit easier to follow. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive in head first. Everything that you do in business, everything that you do in life is created twice. Okay? If it's not created twice, it wasn't created at all. It was just done on accident. So the reality is you got to create everything twice. The first time is creating it in your head. You got to create it in your mind. The second time is you actually create it in the world. This is true for art. This is true for building something. We're having some major work done to our house starting tomorrow. It wasn't work I planned on, but it's work we got to get done. You've got to have the right people in place who can visualize it. They can plan it. They can make sure that they're equipped with the right tools so then they can execute it in a way that's going to, well, not demolish my house because they're building a tunnel under it, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. The same is true in business. You know, no one is accidentally tremendous success in business. If that ever happens, that was just dumb luck. They had to have a vision. They had to have a plan for what they were trying to accomplish. And the reality is by following that plan, by getting a chance to really commit to taking the right steps on it, that's what sets the stage where you can actually create it in the world. And so one of the most important experiences for all of you guys, as far as running your own office, running a business, running a branch, one of the most transferable skills that other business professionals are going to be fired up to see is your ability to do strategic thinking, strategic planning, and problem solve. And so that's really what you have the opportunity to do when it comes to working on your summer plan. All of you should have gotten some stuff in the email about like kickoff conference and Lloyd, some like mandatory goals and breakdowns that they're wanting. And if you haven't gotten some of that stuff, just let us know. We'll send it to you. But it's just got a couple of handouts and ideas on, you know, really how to set up your summer plan. You got to have those goals. You got to create it in your mind first so you have a chance of actually executing it and creating it in the world. And so this time of preparation, this time of visualization is such a key thing. What I want to do, I want to post this in the group me real quick, and hopefully everything will kind of come through in a way you guys can see. But I want you guys to have access to some of the stuff that we're going to go over here today when we kind of talk about how the summer actually breaks down. I'll try it on here. Maybe it'll be easier on my phone. I'm going to post the Silver Cup, kind of the final standings. That was my wife zooming by. I'm going to post the Silver Cup final standings for branches. Now, I know we've got district managers on here as well. We've got some sales managers that'll be working in some of the bigger offices. But I want to use this as a starting point. If you actually get a chance to go over the branch standings, these are the top branch offices for all of last summer. You'll definitely see some familiar faces on there. Obviously, Nicole crushed it. Nicole sold, $240,000 last summer, which is just an ungodly number. That's double what I sold, I think, my first summer back a lifetime ago. Jacob Gordon, a lot of us have encountered Jacob at Urine Banquet and CFC and other region events. Jacob is down in the Woodlands, just north of Houston, super money area there, finished at $279,000. Emily in Provo, Utah, okay? I've met Emily. We hung out a little bit on the Munich trip, which was pretty fun. She sold almost $300,000, which, I mean, that is a district office type summer. And then number one was Andrew Evans. And Andrew, I don't even know, man, did $660,000. There's some weird stuff to that, but, God bless him and Godspeed. So what are your goals and what does your summer look like? Well, it's easy to sometimes look at those numbers and go one of two ways, okay? I had a bad habit when I was a newer manager of I would look at these big numbers and I would either underestimate the challenge of hitting them, or I would just sort of take it for granted that, well, these guys did good stuff. I'm probably better than them. Therefore, I will sell more than them. Okay? So that's underestimating the challenge and how much work went into it. Or the other thing that a lot of times I did is I overestimated how good some of those people were. Meaning that I would look at some of those big numbers and I would either sort of take it for granted, and that's not healthy. That's not a good way to do it. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. But sometimes I also gave them way too much credit. I overestimated their abilities or their territory. I would come up with some narrative in my head, and I think it was just so mentally I had an excuse why I didn't perform at the level that they did. And I would see some of those big numbers and go, oh man, I could never do that because of X. Okay? And I would start to tell this story. And really, at the end of the day, all of us are telling a story with our life. But I would tell myself this story about why my circumstances were different, or I didn't have the territory, or I didn't have the experience, or I didn't have the startup, or I didn't have the ability. Whatever it was, at the end of the day, it's all bullshit. It's all nonsense. Because the reality is every single person on here has access to the same programs that all of us do. The difference is some people executed it a little bit better than others, okay? Nicole executed last summer better than almost anyone in the company. It's just a small handful of people that sold more than her. Jacob executed better than almost anyone in the company. But there were a lot of other big successes and big wins. So what would success look like for you guys? Well, when you start with your planning, it's very easy to come up with some big number, and the big numbers are great. You should have big numbers. I encourage you to have big numbers. The Texoma division needs you to have big numbers. But what is big for you? Is big about a certain profitability point? For some of you guys with the territories you're in, if you sold $70,000 this summer, you're not going to win a lot of trophies. You're not going to win a scholarship. But depending on your territory, a lot of you guys would take home $5,000 to $7,000, maybe even more than that, by only selling 70 grand. And 70 grand is not like a giant number, okay? So it depends on your circumstances and what you're shooting for. Here's what I can tell you, though. For me, the Mendoza line is very simple. What gets you on the trip, okay? Whether you ultimately go or not, that's up to you. I definitely think you should. Sometimes for school, maybe you can't. That's all right. But what gets you on the trip? When you can say you're a trip winner, that's a huge thing. Brad Lewis, because of his college athletics, he wasn't able to go on the trip, but he qualified for the company trip to Budapest. And so being able to put on his resume that, he won a, company sponsored or company paid for trip to the, Budapest, to Hungary in Central Europe. That was this really cool thing. And even though he didn't go on the trip, he still listed it on his resume because obviously that's a significant accomplishment. And so for me, the trip is a great Mendoza line. If you hit the trip, you're going to have a great summer. You're going to help a lot of people. You're going to go to a cool-ass country, and you're going to make a really good amount of money as long as you play your cards right. So I think the trip is a really good Mendoza line. So what does that look like for you guys? Well, I think for branches, what is it, 125? I want to say something like that, 150. I think it's 125. So for you guys, if every single person on this call right now, at a minimum, as a branch qualified to be on that trip, we're gonna have a big ass crew in Grand Cayman. And if you've never been to Grand Cayman, it's a really cool place. I love that place. It is the Switzerland of the Caribbean. Like, it is not like any other island, and it is a hell of a good place to go. So when it comes down to those goals, when you really start to say, okay, if my goal is to be over, say, 130 grand, maybe your actual goal is 200 grand, maybe your actual goal is 150 grand, maybe your actual goal is whatever you want it to be. Maybe your goal is 400 grand. I don't know, okay? But however big your goal is, you need a plan that's going to be sufficient to accomplish that end. A lot of you have probably seen a quantum report before, but some of you maybe haven't. I'm going to post a couple of these in the group meet. And so let me pull this first one up and we can get a chance to kind of walk through it. What a quantum report does is it actually breaks down the previous year's sales. It breaks down all your sales and your recruits by the week. In fact, it actually does this for the last 3 years. So in the case of a branch, a lot of times this will be your first summer. So some of the columns will just be blank because there is no previous years to show. Okay, but what you're going to see on here is going to be a breakdown of sales and recruits week by week. And this is kind of going to be useful for us to get a chance to go over and talk about how your summer breaks and a few different ways that you can really win the game. If you look at this first one here, this is the office in Layton. Okay, Mimi is the name. It's a pretty baller name. And in Mimi's case, she sold $231,000 worth of Cutco. Okay, that's an impressive number. That is highly commendable. Now, she did that on 113 recruits, okay? I feel like in Texoma, sometimes our perspective is skewed. We're so good at working with the really high-end recruits. We're so good at finding those really great kids, getting them in the door, teaching them great skills, offering them awesome support so they sell a lot. That's why we have so many 10K fast starters. You know, I had 5 10K fast starters in my office last summer. Nicole had like 5 or 6. I don't even know, maybe more than that. And 7. There you go, girl. The pilot had a ton as well. And so this is something we're well known for. And that's a good thing. We never want to lose that. Okay. We always want to help create those leaders and empower them to be their best. That's what we build our organization around. But the flip side is those tend to be the most memorable people in our office. Like when I think about my summer, I'm thinking about Kim. I'm thinking about Chris. I'm thinking about Will and Corday and Jeremiah. I'm thinking about those ballers. And in the case of all the offices y'all been in, you know, if you were on a team that recruited 150 people for the summer, the reality is you probably remember like 25 of them and you remember them really well. And that's what you think about for your summer. And so it's very easy to kind of accidentally slip into this sort of false set of assumptions that, you know, I could sell 200 grand with 40 people. Therefore, my goal should be to recruit 40 people and I will sell 200 grand. Now, yes, sometimes it works out that way, but you have to understand it usually doesn't. Okay, it usually doesn't. There's a lot we can control. We'll kind of touch on this. And the better you get at sort of controlling those things that move the levers the most, the easier path you can find to building that most exciting part of your team. But there's a reason they call it the 80-20 rule in business. The top 20% of the people tend to do about 80% of the work. When I sat down with Corday, we did his, we called it a pre-cap during January. And we kind of broke down some of the flow, the ebb of the summer, everything from finances to how recruiting tends to break and just some territory-specific things as well. One of the things I told him was that, you know, that top 20% of your team is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. But my advice is you want to think about it like this. For however many great people you want on your team, you have to account that some people are going to come on and either we're not right for them or they're not right for us, and they're not going to work out. And that may not have been the experience in some of your offices. I've had summers where I recruited incredibly small amounts and we sold a crap load. And that is really fun and satisfying. But I can tell you that the most consistent path to success is going to be people who work hard to build a large, strong team of the right kind of people while really seriously locking arms with their very, very best. Okay? So when you look at this breakdown for what Mimi's sales were, towards the bottom it has the totals. She had 113 recruits overall and sold $231,000. That is phenomenally profitable, just so you know, in case you're wondering. And you will hear us talk about PPR. PPR stands for productivity per rep. That means that for every person who comes into your office, on average, what did they sell? Okay, now in our division, we have some results that will really skew those numbers. Like when you look at Nicole's, her productivity was, like $4 grand or $6 grand or something like that. I've had times in my career where my productivity is super, super high. I'm always towards the high side of the district offices. And you'll see some people even higher than that. You'll see people who have $4,000 to $5,000 productivity. But you have to understand that in order to accomplish that, you do need to have a lot of things go right as far as the PR chains that you get and really being very active and assertive on where your recruits are coming from. What's really impressive about this quantum that we just shared was that even though she had over 100 recruits, which the more recruits you have, theoretically, it's kind of pulling your time and attention in more directions, she still had over a $2,000 productivity. Now, the company average, just to give you some perspective, is more like 1,500. So not only did she have a really strong recruiting office, not only did she do a lot of things right, she did right by her people. That means the average people in her organization were making good money because there's plenty of people that quit before ever doing a demo. And that just means that all the people that did actually work sold that much more. Okay? So does it have to work that way? No, it doesn't. Sometimes legitimately you will get a really small army and you, like I said, you'll lock arms with them and it just gets crazy. But you have to understand that you will have much less margin for error if your goal is to have an incredibly small team. I want to show you one more here, Aaron Harris. And by the way, we have these quantums for every single office in the entire company. So literally any branch that you guys want to see, you're going to be able to pull those up. Okay, I've got Nicole's we can post here. By the way, hers is beastly. What a great office. What a great summer she had. She did an amazing job. This isn't to take away anything from the great work of people like Jacob or Nicole that did it with small teams. But like I said, you really have to have a lot of things go right to find that Aaron who can go out there and crush and build the people, and find the Will Florence in my office who can go around and crush. But when it happens, it is special. Okay. On errands, I just put this up in GroupMe, and I know a lot of you're watching this on your phone, so you can't really switch over to GroupMe. Don't worry about it, okay? But on errands, he had 68 recruits, so that's a decent summer. I mean, that's not a bad recruiting summer for a branch, but he's still on that. He sold $278,000, okay? And that's a really, really impressive number. That $278,000 off 68 recruits, let's see, what did that put his productivity at? His PPR, as we were saying, over $4,000. So that's probably flipped right there, but $4,050. So again, that's almost not 3 times the national average, but that's like 2.5 times the national average. Now, how are they getting such a high productivity? Okay, well, again, there's really 2 main things that affect productivity. Number one is just the quality of recruits you're getting in. Okay, are you just taking whatever comes in off the street, or are you really going out there and searching for and finding the right people with a great PR program, utilizing Snapchat and social media, going and putting out flyers or graduation letters at high school graduations? We'll be talking about that in an upcoming call. Making sure that you're collecting a ton of PR names in training and you're using the conveyor texting system. So it sends out all these great messages to all these potential applicants. And again, the great thing is now they just get set for interviews on their own. Like, are you utilizing those things? So the first key to great productivity is get great people in the door. The second key is your productivity systems, your training, your Fast Start program, and the support that you can give people long term. Okay, these are all things we're going to continue working on, but always keep in mind, those are the 2 biggest ways to improve your productivity. What's the quality of the recruits, and how are your productivity systems rolling? Okay, in this case, this guy did a lot of things right, and it's impressive to see. And so that is a case where he had that $4,000 productivity. Now, when it comes down to this, when you actually get a chance to go through these quantums, especially if you do pull up Nicole's, and I can post Nicole's as well. I don't know if I have it right here in front of me, but I can post it a little bit later. The reason why it's useful for y'all to see Nicole or to see Riley Gothal's or other really successful branches that have done a great job in this area is to get a chance to see how the summer breaks. Some of you are already pretty familiar with this, but we still want to walk through it anyway. When you start to go through and look at that planning document, okay, that real simple thing where it just goes through week by week, sales recruits, okay, it's very easy to do this, to go, I have 14 weeks of the summer, like effectively for when you're here in town and when your office is open. I have 14 weeks of the summer. My goal is to sell $200,000 with the productivity that I think I can get. I need to recruit 90 people for that. So therefore, I just need to divide 90 by 14 weeks. And I need to divide $200,000 by 14 weeks. And that's my goals. Okay. Well, I'm sure you guys understand it doesn't actually work out that way. Most of our recruiting, virtually all of our recruiting, is going to happen during about a 6 to 8 week window of the summer. Okay. So even though some of these quantums are really great, different parts of the country break at different times. You'll hear us use the term of territory breaking. That just tends to mean when their schools actually get out. And so when you have access to the really good quality recruits you're going to build around. Some parts of the country, some of the big colleges, most of their finals are done at the very end of April. So by May week 1, things get crazy. And in fact, you'll always see SEC, Alabama, Louisiana, a lot of the territories out there, some of the better territories, they always pop up quick. And it's frustrating, by the way. Like it'll mess with your head. I remember Nick Smith, when he was a branch, had a week, the first week in, I guess it was May, and he had like 50 people in training. Okay. By the way, that same week in Dallas, I had 5 people in training. But that was because the schools around him had already gotten out that week before. Okay, he branched in a different area. And so my point is that, you can't always compare, your territory to what you see on paper. Okay. Now, all of you are going to great territories that can support whatever your goals are. But my point by that is, like, when you look at some of these quantums, you're going to see that by like week 1 of May, for instance, I'm looking at Mimi's, she sold $9,000. Okay. I don't think any of you guys will be open week 1 of May. Like, if any of you are open, then that's a surprise to me. In fact, most of you won't be open until, that 2nd or 3rd week of May, just because of your class schedule. Okay. And that's very normal. So when you look at this, though, don't freak out. Kind of learn how to read it by paying attention to people who are in the Southwest region. Okay. So really where things start to get crazy for us is about the middle of May. Okay. There's going to be 2 main waves of applicants that we get. And then everything beyond that is all driven by PRs and the work that we do to bring those best quality people in. Okay. The 2 big waves, though, are when the colleges get out. And then the second one is when the high schools get out. Okay. All the colleges get out kind of in the middle of May. So our mailers will start dropping depending on your territory and when you get out of school. Our mailers will start dropping that 2nd or 3rd week of May. Okay. We usually base it around UT. That tends to be the last of the big schools that we see a lot of people from to get out. And I think it gets out on like May 16th or 15th, something like that. So we don't really send our mailers before that. Like, we might mail them, but they're not going to arrive at people's homes before that point. Okay. And then we have about a 3-week window where you may not have mailers going out during that whole period of time, but where you have this organic influx of people. You have people who are moving back into town. You have people who have finished up their semester at TCU or Brookhaven or SMU or Richland or UTD or wherever, and they're actively looking for work. On top of that, you'll have mailers that are going out to these people. People are going to be on the website looking for stuff. You'll be doing your social media ads. And so you'll get this natural influx of people that starts about the middle of May. Once we get that first mailer call, we call that period gold. Okay. And gold means about that next 6 to 8 weeks of quality recruiting that's going to happen. Okay. We have about 3 weeks there where the college students really do come in large numbers, pretty organically. They come in just because they're on the line looking for work. You've got your PR program starting off, and you're hitting some things like that. The second big wave is the high school mailers. When all the high schools get out, that's when we see the next big influx. Okay. Now, here's one of the challenging parts to really getting your best people in. Okay. The high school mailers that we send out are the most profitable ones company-wide. Like, for me, I tend to do a little more with my college ones, but both are great. And for most of the country, the high school mailers are the most profitable. And if you're not sure when I say mailers, that just means the letters that go out directly to people. Okay. If you don't know what a mailer is, just ask me later. All right. But when it comes down to those mailers, the high school mailers that get sent out that first week of June after graduation, we always have to wait until whatever the last school to graduate is. That's pretty much what we have to base it around, just because we only have so much control over the dates. Now, the challenging part is this. Most private schools get out earlier. Some of the private schools are out by almost when the colleges are, middle of May, late May, and those people immediately start looking for good opportunities. So some of your best people, if you just wait for them to receive the mailer, you're out of luck. Now, I know you guys know this. We've talked about PRs on tons of calls. And by the way, we're going to keep talking about PRs, tons of calls. And once the summer starts, we're going to keep talking about more PRs. We're going to make sure you guys all have a great and robust PR program. But I want you guys to understand that when you start to look at these quantums, your biggest weeks of recruiting are going to happen anywhere from the middle of May to the end of June, but it's usually about the second week of June. So if you think about sort of like this bell curve of the summer, the peak of this is going to be about the middle of June. So if you're trying to recruit 50 people for the summer, you may have one launch where you get like 12 people out the door. That's probably the second week of June. Okay, and so during May, it might be that you launch, 5 people, and then you launch 8 people, and then you launch 10, and then you launch 12, and then you launch 9, 6, 4, and then that might be essentially it for your recruiting. But you add those up, and you're going to get around to that 50 number. Okay. By the way, I'll tell y'all that for pretty much all of you, if you have a minimum recruiting goal of at least 50 people for the summer, you're going to run a pretty solid office. You're for sure going to run a profitable office. But I would be nervous to see any of you with a goal less than that. Okay? So even if you are super confident, even if you feel 1,000% sure that you could get 40 rock stars in the door or 30 rock stars in the door and every one of them could sell $20,000, great. Fantastic. Okay? Take that 600 grand they're going to sell and break the all-time record like a badass. Then I still want you to go find 30 more kids that totally, all told between them, can sell another 100 grand. Because guess what? We're still going to keep doing you for all those kids. We're still going to pay you. Okay? And then on the off chance that some of those kids you really are confident about, if a few of them don't pan out, that extra 100 grand you're going to get from those other kids is still going to make sure you hit the goals that you have. Okay? So I would be very, very cautious when you do your goals that have anything less than 50 in your mind. All right. So when you start to look at these quantums, you'll see this bell curve I'm talking about. And it's very normal for branches that by about the beginning of July, your recruiting might be done. Okay, that's not a bad thing. One of two things will happen as you get to the back part of the summer. Either you'll keep recruiting, run your PR program, launch a few people a week. It may not be a ton, but you could do like Nicole. She would run training for like 2 badasses and get one to sell 15K, one to sell 10K. That's amazing. Okay, but if you're not recruiting at that point, then you'll go in the field and work with your guys. You'll have built a team up and you'll get a chance to sell with them. And especially if you've never had a 10K push, highly recommend doing that come in C2. Okay, you'll be shocked how much better you've gotten throughout the summer. All right, so the big thing I just want you to understand are some of the basics and some of the fundamentals. For us, the start of that recruiting curve is going to be the middle of May. It's going to peak once you get to about the second week of June, maybe the third week of June, and then there's a natural descent. Okay, so if you execute things correctly, if you come right, that window right there can make your entire summer. Okay, you don't have to have a giant army to go out there and sell 150 grand and leave the summer with a lot of money in your pocket. And you don't need a giant army to go sell 300 grand, but you do need an army. I will tell you that. And you need your foot soldiers. You need those best of the best to go with them. And so that's really where it's at. We're going heavy on the battle metaphors, but what can I tell you? It's building a team. I get excited about it. Okay? So a couple of the big takeaways, like I said, start in the middle of May. That's where your recruiting starts. Work your way up pretty quickly to where your apex will be that second week of June. And your apex should be just kind of based on some of the things you're seeing in the quantum. Maybe some of you will have a 20 launch. That'd be exciting. But some of you may never have a launch bigger than 15 people. That's okay. You can have a badass summer launching 15 people, even for your biggest week, because you're going to have all the build up before of all the tail that comes after that. Okay? Take these quantums seriously. I'm going to post in there, I think I already posted the Silver Cup standings for last summer. So you guys can see right there on paper the breakdown. Okay? Here's what I want all of y'all to do. I'm going to post a link to the quantum report that has the quantums for all 200 branches or something last summer. And a lot of them are just piddly stupid numbers, like people that sold 19 grand, and there's nothing for you to learn from that. So don't try to go through 200 quantums, but pick a couple towards the top of that and pick a couple towards the bottom of that Silver Cup report, because guys, even people at the bottom were selling 140 grand. They were leaving with great money and a trip to Munich, Germany. That's what the trip was last year. Okay, so I want you to take some time this week to look at the top, to look at sort of the bottom of that branch silver cup report. Just search the quantum we're going to post in there and see how did their summer break. And once you've started to look at a few of these, it's amazing how you can start to interpret the numbers for yourself. It's amazing how you can look at a blank sheet that just represents a schedule for yourself, and you start to see the code behind the matrix. You can start to go, oh yeah, I want to launch 65 people and sell 140 grand this summer, and I can see if that second week of June is going to be my biggest launch, or that third week of June, I think I can launch 16 people as my biggest launch. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to work it backwards a little bit on either side and see where I get to. Was my plan sufficient for that? Great. Okay, cool. That got me up to that 65 people. All right, great. Now let's start to look at that lifespan of the rep. Okay? When you go through these steps, it's not hard. And I know this is sort of a lot of circling the wagons for a few real simple key points, but I just want to make sure you guys walk away with the right expectations and to have the right framework to operate with them. At least 50 recruits. Everyone should be hitting the trip. Okay? Everyone should be working to hit the trip. A lot of you will be done recruiting by that second, by the 4th of July, essentially. But if you're done recruiting, then that means you're in the field selling. If you don't want to be in the field selling, you need to keep recruiting, okay? And then the last big thing is just base it around that high point and track your bell curve from there. My favorite business plan I think I've ever worked on with any of my development before was Riley Gofalds. Riley was a little bit before some of y'all's time. But Riley was an interesting guy that we had to make a lot of accommodations for. Riley has serious issues with his eyesight. And so without his glasses, he was legally blind. He couldn't drive except during daylight hours. It's literally a restriction on his driver's license. And so we had to work his entire office schedule around like a guy who only could operate within this very limited window of time. In Riley's case, he also had to leave basically the last week of July. That was when his summer ended. So we had all these things that really could have been restrictions and could have been the reason why he didn't accomplish his goals. But instead, Riley took this very thoughtful approach to all his planning. We gave him a couple documents that said, hey, use these to sort of plan out your summer. Here's some quantums. Look over these and see what other successful people have done. Here's who the top people were last summer. And he just did a lot of homework, and he took this seriously like he was doing an assignment in business school and graduate school. And he went through and did this really, really detailed plan based around all the restrictions he had, but all the opportunity he saw. And I'll be damned in not being able to operate anything in his office that started later than 4 p.m., not being able to be in his office for pretty much any of SD2 except the first 4 days, all these things that he had going against him, quote unquote, he still did like 170 grand that summer. And the reason that I loved his business plan so much is that all the numbers were basically completely wrong. Like everything on it was off. Okay, like what he thought it would take to get to his goals wasn't even close. But what I loved about it was just because there were a few little pieces of information he was missing. When I went over his plan with him, I kind of laughed and I was like, dude, you won't need this many touches to get this many PRs, but you'll need, more recruits than this to hit this overall sales goal. And he was like, man, I feel so dumb. I did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. And I laughed. I said, no, man, everything on it was right except just these couple key things that you didn't know. Like the touch to launch for this particular source, or these couple key things. And once we plugged in those few little details, everything about his plan was basically perfect. It was the single best plan that I've ever had a branch hand me, and it's no surprise to me that he absolutely killed it running his office. But when he first went through it, he felt like I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel like I had enough information. I didn't feel like I was experienced enough or knowledgeable enough. And so his initial plan seemed crazy. In fact, at first he was like, dude, I don't know. I tried, but it didn't work. We just got to do it together. And I was like, give me what you got. And he didn't want to hand it over. But it's amazing by putting the work in, by just doing your best effort with your planning, Celeste will go in and do these 3 tweaks, and then everything about your plan will make sense. I'll go in and adjust these 2 or 3 numbers, and everything about your plan will make sense. So please don't just depend on your manager to hand it to you, okay? We're going to give you resources and support. Take the time to do it. Come up with your summer plan. Have a vision in your mind of sales and recruiting for every week of the summer. And then we can help you go, what do you got to do to get the recruits? And then what are you going to do after that to get those sales? Because, guys, once you do that, all of a sudden the stuff will get real. But it'll get real in an exciting way. I'm going to be doing that with my office here at the beginning of April with my summer staff, and I'm so excited. Create it in your mind so that way you can create it in the world. Okay? be on the lookout. I'll get it posted here tonight. I'm going to post a link to all last year's quantums, okay? So you guys can all go through that. You already know who the top offices were, and you have a few samples to look at. Take a little time this week, get it done, and by the time we hit kickoff conference next week, whether you can make it to kickoff or not, make sure that you have taken a crack at creating your summer plan. Sound good? Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your time. We'll call it a night at this point. The recording will get posted here in a bit if you need to go back and review something, and it's going to be an amazing week. Oh, by the way, one last shout out. Huge congrats to Corday. He's been scrambling, working hard to get his startup up. As of a week ago, he had $0 in startup. Maybe some of you can relate to that. But he's been doing everything he could, pulling from different accounts, doing some side hustles, selling some knives, getting his stuff from savings, and he just put $3,000 in his startup. That's a really exciting number. So maybe some of you guys don't have a lot of startup in yet. That's okay. There's still time, but you should really work with your manager and start to think about, what could I get to? What's a realistic number for me to get to? And if you have some money set aside for your office, let's make sure you get that in the company startup, because that makes that just shows your seriousness. It's your money. If it doesn't get spent, you just get it back at the end of the summer. But you know, when you've got money in the bank, you just make better decisions. So let's make sure that we take a little bit of time and thought to go into that as well. All right, guys, thanks so much for your time tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing a lot of y'all at kickoff and talking to pretty much all of you next week.